I beat you. You said you were going to win.
And you didn't.
I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and I grew up in North Dakota where everything is completely flat. And I feel like every year living in Skagway has made me a stronger person. Like, every year it gets easier, and every year I'm like, oh, that's not as steep as I remember it.
Yeah. Exactly. It's only 14 miles uphill. Who hasn't done that? Yeah.
Riding is absurd, Paul Fornell writes in his book Need for the Bike. Riding is absurd like peeling vegetables, skiing, and thinking deeply. Riding does feel absurd so much of the time, especially in little Skagway, Alaska, where there are only 2 roads out of town. One road dead ends at a ghost town, and the other road climbs a vertical kilometer to Canada. For all of the bike tours that we would lead down the White Pass for Sockeye Cycle Company on the clock, we would also occasionally ride back up the pass when we were off the clock. Riding the White Pass was an initiation into Sockeye House and the fraternity of cycling. The first time up the pass was a monumental effort. The average cyclist on a decently geared bike could make it up the pass in 3 or 4 hours, with plenty of stops for water and pictures. Olympic caliber cyclists could sprint up the pass in just an hour. It was so early in the season on my very first climb up the White Pass that the snowbanks at the summit were still taller than me. By the summer solstice, they had melted, revealing alpine meadows and glaciers hanging above the forested valleys below. Even today, I can close my eyes and climb the White Pass in my mind, seeing the gorge below me and the cliffs above me, hearing the waterfalls and the marmots, smelling the spruce tips and the fireweed. So, in this episode, I'm going to talk more with Taylor and Shannon about riding the White Pass, as well as the logistics and benefits of biking with groceries. I'll also talk a little bit about racing a Sockeye Cycle housemate in the Yukon's Southern Lakes Grand Fondo. While I'm not a competitive cyclist, I do enjoy the occasional challenge. So let's roll, y'all.
What benefits did you find to going grocery shopping with your bike as opposed to Brian's car?
Ooh, that's a great question. I had a couple stores that I could go to. One had a little bit longer of a route but less traffic, and the other was really quick jaunt there by bike, but there was a lot more traffic. And I find that if I'm carrying things on my bike, I feel safer and happier and just more at ease and less like I'm in a rush if there is less traffic zooming around, just because you're already kind of like either carrying things or hauling things in some way, and that can sometimes slow you down. I liked not having to worry about all the cars. So as far as benefits of biking to take care of errands like that versus driving, I got to know a lot more people in the community along those routes. I had friends that lived in those neighborhoods, and so you're sort of familiarizing yourself with those places. You're like catching up on details. You see like the same kids out playing in their yards from day to day, and they wave at you, and you know, you get the lemonade stand experience. Marmot?
Yeah, there's a marmot sitting on top of the guardrail.
Oh, awesome.
Sorry. So I'm just going to interrupt and say, we are driving through British Columbia right now on the Klondike Highway, and so there's just random marmots that are sitting on top of guardrails as we drive by. Another question I wanted to ask you about shopping with your bike. Did riding the bike ever impact your choice of what you were buying, and did you ever feel like less was more when you were buying stuff to transport on your bike?
Definitely. If I'm going through a grocery store and I know I'm biking home with my groceries, I always go for the basket rather than the shopping cart, because you just carry a car trunk full of groceries home.
Right.
And there are, like, of course, different bike setups that allow you to carry more. There's like cargo bikes and whatnot. But if you've just got like a standard bike that maybe you've got a backpack or panniers, or you're carrying a bag of groceries home, you have to be a little less impulsive as you're going through the grocery store. So I go for the shopping basket because if I fill that basket, that's about how much stuff I'm comfortable carrying home. Also, if certain things are really heavy, like if I'm buying fruits and vegetables that have a lot of water weight or something, or if I've bought a gallon of milk, for instance, like that's a kind of a heavier thing. And so I might buy fewer things if I know I've got that added weight. But I also buy fresher things, I think, because if I'm buying less stuff at once, I know I'll be coming back to the store sooner.
Gotcha.
So you're maybe shopping more frequently in some instances, but probably buying things that are more nutritious for you as a result.
Yeah, and then you're burning off those calories riding your bike home as well.
Yeah.
So you're really ready to break into that Skagway, Alaska avocado. Then you're like,
right.
oh my gosh, I found an avocado.
And
This
it's
is so
actually,
amazing.
it's ripe.
It's ripe.
Yeah.
And it only cost me $2.40. This is amazing.
There's such a narrow window, though. This morning, that avocado,
Yeah.
it was perfect. Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool. All right, I'm going to get out my passport since we're just about up to Canadian customs.
This is really fun, Wes.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was trying to think about it. I was like thinking about podcasts that I like. And I was like, you know what? One of the things I really love in podcasts is when they have the driving interviews. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. We get this opportunity, like,
Every day.
almost every day to do a driving interview.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go. There's mine.
That's thank you. Ooh, fancy.
Well, cheap and practical, because I didn't want to have to carry a passport book with me. I just wanted to be able to have the card in my pocket.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier. The
And I'm not,
passports are
yeah, I'm not planning on going to
anywhere else.
anywhere else for a while.
Right.
Hey, Farah.
Hi, how are you today?
At this point, Officer Farrow with the Royal Canadian Border Guard is checking our passports and waving us on through.
Ready? Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you, dear. Oh, Bernard.
Lake Bernard, it's still frozen.
It's so sparkly. There's a lot of open water now, though.
I know. Almost ready to go swimming. It's gonna be so good.
Do you guys actually swim?
I do, yeah.
But would you want to, Rox?
Yeah. So it was, like everyone has like, how did you come to Alaska story?
Right.
So like, hey Paul, how did you come to Alaska? Well, I had been biking through the rest of the 49 states. I had already toured them. Alaska was the last one. So I flew up to Anchorage with my bike. And then I came riding back here through Skagway, and I kind of liked it. And I thought, what the heck? I'll stay here. They need tour guides. And he's 29. I mean, like, you'd think he was like 70. He's so tired of the world. Like, the first day I wore a kilt here on tour, he was just like, yeah, I used to have this other guy I wore a kilt. Like,
That was his reaction.
that was it. I just
Oh my god. Why do I feel like I would have been friends with him?
Right, exactly.
I love it. That's
he
so
was,
funny.
He was a very cool guy
Yeah.
in
That's
many
so
many
funny.
respects. Yep, and
Oh
he
my
definitely could
God.
do his job well, and that was really important.
Right.
And he had mad mountain biking skills and mad road bike skills, and he was just like super fit, kind of like well, he'd be like the like if you were doing club rides at Team Tri-Power or East Coast Bikes, he would be the guy who could win, but wouldn't put himself out to win in a race if he thought he was going to lose because he couldn't handle it. But he wouldn't actually admit to his own insecurities about not being able to handle
I
it.
see. He would just like hang back because he knew he wouldn't win.
Right,
So he'd be
exactly.
Like, on purpose losing.
Yeah,
instead of-
yeah.
Yep. Got
Yeah,
it.
so
Got it.
the week before the 2 days before we did the Grand Fondo last
Yeah.
year, he's sitting around the table at Sockeye House, and we'd all been drinking beer, and so he's like, I just want to say, I'm gonna beat everybody in
Oh,
the
this was
in the
that
Grand
guy.
Klondike. Yes, this
that
is
was
Paul.
okay.
Yeah.
I got it. I made the
And we're all
connection.
like, what? And I said to him, I mean, because up to that point, I was thinking like, this is gonna be just like, a friendly
Fun,
club ride. Like we're just
right.
all like,
We're just all gonna
we're
go
all
ride
gonna go.
bikes,
We're all gonna like
yeah.
support each other doing this century.
Yeah.
Some of us are gonna do stages. It's
We'll
just gonna
be
be
in it
chill.
together.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's like, I'm just gonna win. I want to tell you all, I'm gonna win this thing. And I said, Paul, you mean you're gonna beat everybody else in this? Because
No,
that's
you're
saying a
not.
lot. Like I've seen the guys from Whitehorse.
Right.
They are amazingly fit. You haven't been riding your bike. They have,
He's sitting in the office.
Right, exactly. Like even if you were out riding, he's still just like, I'm so tired of riding the White Pass, whatever.
God damn it, Paul.
Yeah, I know. So he says, no. He goes, well, I'm not. No, I'm just gonna beat Sockeye. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna be the fastest Sockeye up there. I went, oh, okay. I'm like, well, you. Like, like if this is gonna be a race,
This is how it is.
right? Exactly.
Oh my god.
And so when we all started at the, it was big mass start, and I got myself into the front group, and he was staying behind with his girlfriend Anna,
Yeah.
and he was like, she had never done a century before, so he was like trying to like stick with her, but he's also like, I'm
Anna's
just not.
super fit though too.
Yeah.
She's a beast.
Right, but I mean, this was like her first organized century. I think she had ridden from Whitehorse to Skagway like the year prior, and had been nearly like it was a monumental experience for her. Like she'd never ridden that far before, and it was really blowing her. So Paul ended up just like riding with her, and I was off in the fast group, and I knew I would get to a checkpoint, every 20 or 30 miles, and like the first one I came in, and I'm just like, I am moving, like I'm like watching my clock, and I'm like watching down the road, and I see like Paul come over the crest of the hill. I'm like, all right, I'm gone. Like
That's
Paul
it.
I'm still in front of Paul. I'm gonna grab with this fast group here. I'm gonna ride with them. I got to the next one. I never saw Paul arrive. I'm like asking the van as they're coming along, like, where's Paul? Have you seen Paul? What's going on? So he ended up dropping out. He dropped out. He's like, well, I have a cold. I'm just not really. I think it might be the flu. I'm not feeling good today. And so I got to the end of the ride. I'm like, Paul, I beat you. I really wasn't trying today.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
Shut up, Paul.
Yeah, I'm like, I beat you. You said you
Right.
were going to win.
And you didn't.
He
Yeah.
always won at chess too,
Yeah.
and he would just be like,
Yeah.
"Eh."
I'll be like, I got 20 years and 50 pounds on you, motherfucker, and I beat you, okay?
He's so
I finished first off.
Yeah, I finished.
And even if you had finished, I would have beat you.
Right.
Like,
I always
Did you ride the pass for the first time on your Raleigh?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
And how'd that go? What was that like? What was it like going
It
up the
was
pass for the
long.
first time? Long?
It was long, and there were a lot of like sockeye housemates coming up and down the road as I went and like cheering me along. That helped a lot. Actually, one cheer in particular, I was like right at mile 13, and Paul was driving a van back down, and he like hung out the window and was like, "You're almost there, Taylor!" And then there was another time at Bridalveil Falls, Aaron Kennedy and Anna were there with a group, and they were like, "You're looking so strong, keep going." And I was like, "Really? Okay." Like, I don't feel that way, but you saying that helps. And then I got to the top, and there was a group up there, and Joe Altman Moore was there, and he was like, "You got to get a picture at the summit." And I was like, no. And they're like, no, you have to get a picture up here. You rode up the pass. And I was like, okay. And they're like, you should lift your bike over your head. And I was so like tired and weak. And I feel like every year living in Skagway has made me a stronger person. Like every year it gets easier, and every year I'm like, oh, that's not as steep as I remember it.
Yeah.
It's never like easy. Right about mile 13, 14, I'm always like, I'm tired. But it gets easier. Never easy, but easier.
That makes sense.
And they were like, yeah, pick up your bike. And so I was trying to pick my bike up and lift it over my head, and it was like crushing me. I was like falling back with it and had it like at face level, and then I was like finally got it like halfway up in the air. It was like all askew, like I couldn't hold it straight up above my head. So we got all these goofy pictures of me at the summit, like with my bike crushing me, and I was like, it's been this way for the last 2.5 hours coming up, like
Yeah.
it's been crushing me the whole time. Nothing's changed. You're just getting it in photo form now.
So, what was the most frightening and what was the most rewarding part of your first climb up the White Pass?
Oh, the most frightening part?
Yeah.
Gosh. Well, I feel like now I savor the climb more than the downhill.
Okay.
And when I started riding up the White Pass, that was not the case. Riding up was a means to an end because all I could think about was riding down. It was like the closest thing to flying that I could find.
Yes.
And I loved to just like let go and like not brake and then just like pedal into your crazy headwind and just like cruise. And that was the goal. And so I'd get up and then be like, oh, finally I can turn around and just like float down this thing. But now I get to the top and I'm like, oh, it's gonna be really cold on the way down. And like, I still enjoy the thrill of it, but I enjoy the climb more than I do the way back down, and that's been a funny shift. So the rewards in the climb have changed for me. I don't know that there was ever a point in which I was like legitimately frightened during the climb, other than like the occasional bear sighting. And when I was on my own, I was pretty uneasy about that. Just because if I was climbing up, I was like, I'm not really moving that fast. Do I want to creep by this furry guy? And like, when I'm by myself, am I actually comfortable with my ability to like be big and be loud, especially when I'm like maybe a little tired and winded right now? And so that would spook me. But otherwise, I think I was just like, and I'm pretty sure I didn't see a bear the first time up. I'm actually quite certain that didn't happen. So maybe the biggest fear would have been like, can I do this or not?
Yeah, it's a challenge.
That was, now that I think about it. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and I grew up in North Dakota where everything is completely flat. And like, if you're working hard, it's just because you're pedaling into the wind or something. So it was a really new and different experience for me to be like, oh, okay, this is just a different level, a different way of biking. Like, we're clipping in, we're looking for the efficiencies, we're not just like cruising around the Irish countryside with nowhere to be. It was like, I don't want to take forever to do this. I'm not exactly looking for speed, but I don't want to be super slow. And
I didn't even know we were still podcasting for a long time.
I just let it kept rolling. I'm just like, I was kind of like, you know what, this American life, what would they do? How would Ira Glass approach it? So I found the very first time I did it, that initial ascent out of town from Liarsville, and you go into Black Lakes, and you're just like, your heart is just pounding, and you're like, oh my God, I am going to die on this. And you don't know that it's like, it's actually, that's one of the steepest sections, and it's going to get easier after that.
yeah.
And then you get up to Black Lakes, you're like, okay, all right, I got this. It's flat. It's actually a little bit of downhill. Oh, I got it. This is going to be easy. And then you hit that next steep section, you're like, oh, this is hard.
Yeah, that part between Liarsville and Black Lakes is kind of like you forget it's there. I always forget it's there.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, there's more of this mountain. Like,
You get through and it flattens
right.
out during
Yeah.
Black Lakes.
yeah, it's
The
weird.
other section too that really got me the first time, someone had, and I didn't know the pass very well at all, and so it, just like I said, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and someone had told me that right after customs, that would be the steepest section. And so I go through customs, and I'm headed up, and it's actually like pretty flat right after
Yeah,
customs.
yeah.
But I was like, oh my god, this is the steepest section. Like,
Oh no.
I am killing it. And then you like come around a bend and you just see this wall of road
Yes.
rising up in front of you. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, that part,
Yes.
that looks cruel.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That was like, and you don't see
Yeah.
it right when you go through customs. So I honestly thought,
Yeah.
right after I crossed past the U.S. border station, I was like,
Yeah.
this is the hardest part. And
It's actually one of
it
the
was
easiest
actually
parts.
just around the corner. There it is. There it is.
Yeah, and you hit that, and you can't. There, and the valley is so closed at that point. You're in this like this. You got this wall of a road in front of you, and then there's the walls of the valley rising above you. You can't see. You don't see the big mountains, so it's kind of like you're stuck in this green tunnel for a while, and you're just like, God. And then you finally just like labor around the corner, and then everything opens up, and you're like, I can breathe again. I'm gonna live. I'm gonna live. I only got another 6 miles to go. I can do this. You're like,
Only 6 more miles.
exactly.
Up the hill.
It's
Yeah,
only
it's nothing,
it's only
nothing,
14
nothing.
miles uphill. Who hasn't done that? Yeah. Yeah, that was the intense part for me, was that coming from New England and Appalachia, I wasn't really used to riding mountains with a continuous climb of more than 5 or 6 miles. Like
Yeah.
5 or 6 miles, that was big. Like, and so now it's like 5 miles. I mean, the White Pass is 3 times that distance.
Yeah. There's like more contours
Yeah.
in other places.
Yeah, this just keeps on going. That's the fun part. All right, well, I think this is going to conclude at least part 1. Maybe this will be the entire part of our interview with Taylor. And there's the train!
Timing.
There we go. How's that for timing? So there comes our train. We're going to be getting folks, putting you into the van, taking them up to the summit of the White Pass for the Sockeye Cycle Train and Bike Tour. This concludes an episode of Tell Me About Your Bike. Thank you so much for talking to us, Taylor.
Thank you, Wes.
And thanks, Shannon, for being an audience.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
Blow Up by Paul Fornell. Extreme cycling fatigue is very distinctive. Blow up, fall flat, do a nosedive. These are all expressions that have clear enough derivations. This extreme fatigue is symbolized well by a character who's famous in all the world's pelotons. He goes by the moniker the Man with the Hammer. The Man with the Hammer is hidden behind a turn, and you don't know which one. He's waiting for you. When you go by with sprightly legs, he smashes his big old hammer on your neck and turns you into a wreck. Then, even if you were to say that you had seen his shadow for some time stretched out on the road, no one would believe you. You can't anticipate this kind of fatigue. It appears suddenly, and it is terrible. You'd sell your soul to get rid of it. My life as a rider is a collection of nosedives, my own and others. The worst thing you can do in such cases is to just rest a bit before setting off again. The second you get back on your bike, the fatigue immediately returns massively with its yoke of pain. It's too late. Anything that you could do good, drinking, eating, stretching out, nauseates you. You'd offer your bike to the first passerby so as not to see it again. The smidgen of thought left in your brain is a profound sense of the absurd, which makes you want to vomit. Your sweat is like ice, your skin is pallid, and you curl into a ball on the side of the road. Your entire body is in revolt. With experience, you get the feeling you can master these blow-ups, but it's not true. You do get to know them. You know that you'll get out of it. You panic less, and you recover quicker. I think the origins of doping can be found in the specific character and the suddenness of this kind of fatigue. Blow-ups in races are measured in lost quarter hours and lost races. They're easy enough to spot. In a few seconds, champions can age 10 years, their faces hollow, their eyes sunken. The great Eddy Merckx, at the moment Bernard Thévenet caught up with him on the climb to Pralloup, he was ready for a deck chair. It seems there's something you don't know about what's brewing inside you. A big black lump that was forming in your chest while you were peacefully pedaling. These are the warning signs of a blow-up, but they aren't appreciably different from the signs of normal tiredness. And now that I think about it, metaphysical anxiety might be one hint. Riding is absurd, climbing to descend, going in circles behind this mountain, there's another, why hurry? Riding is absurd, like peeling vegetables, skiing, thinking deeply, or living. The moment these questions come up while you're riding, you should take note. That's when your quads are demanding more oxygen from your heart than your lungs can provide. That's when it gets foggy. If you're on a friend's wheel, he'll pull away by 2 bike lengths without accelerating. You come back, dancing on your pedals, but then you lose the 2 lengths again. You do this rubber band trick 10 times or so, and then you let him go, telling yourself that you'll catch up soon. In fact, the next time you see him is when he turns around and comes back, worried to find out what happened. At that point, you won't recognize him, or better yet, you'll recognize him, but only as someone who might buy your disgusting bike. Every blow-up is a furious descent deep into oneself, into murky regions where things seem to knot up incessantly. Well, why not give up the bike after a blow-up? Because the blow-up is a journey, and the cyclist is first and foremost a traveler. And because, after a blow-up, your organism is altered. There's a kind of purification in falling flat, an impression of fasting. A threshold is crossed that brings you closer to being in shape. And the next day, when the worst of the tiredness is over, you feel it. There are some racers who include a blow-up in their training. I remember Lorraine Fignon, 3 days before the World Championships, setting off to do 300 kilometers alone with a cereal bar. He went out to meet the man with the hammer. If Lorraine Fignon, world champion, needs a blow-up, then just about any clown like me can use one too. In every episode of Tell Me About Your Bike, I want to include a segment called Podcasts I Listen to on My Bike. The second big biking podcast that I found back in the day was the Bikescape podcast. This was when listening to podcasts was a pretty fringe phenomenon and took a degree of technical skill. Back then, I had to search for podcasts on iTunes, download them to my Macintosh PowerBook, plug my iPod mini into my PowerBook, add the newest podcast episode to the sync folder in iTunes, and then manually sync my iPod mini to iTunes. I dreamed of the day when I could download podcasts directly to my iPod mini. But the Bikescape podcast made it worth it. It was, and still is, an amazing collection of studio interviews, rolling interviews, sound collages, music made with and about bikes, bike races, and even critical mass bike rides. All recorded in San Francisco and the Bay Area. The Bikescape blog is still up, and many of the episodes are still available to listen to there through a web browser, but sadly, it no longer shows up on most podcasting apps. So, thanks y'all for listening to the second episode of my podcast, Tell Me About Your Bike. Please rate and review it wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be launching a Patreon page soon. If you like what you've heard, share this episode with a friend. If you really like what you heard and you know someone who needs a podcast produced, pass my name on to them. I'm between seasonal jobs right now and I'm looking to tell more audio stories. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. If you've got a story to tell about your bike, drop me a link. Let's meet up, ride together, and make some memories. Cheers, y'all.